So it was about 10 or 15 years ago, and I was planning to do a workout at Ray Longo's Mixed Martial Arts Academy, and that was back in the day before Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre in arguably one of the biggest upsets in mixed martial arts history. Back in the day before the Chris Weidmans, the Ali Aquintas, the Aljamain Sterlings, the Bazookas, the Marabs, Sasaki, Mizuki, etc. Back in the day before Ray Longo became the internationally acclaimed stand-up coach in mixed martial arts that he is in his industry. And certainly before we instituted any educational programs or regulations for sparring in the gym. And so I walked in, and at that time there was a ring. And there were two people in the ring, one of whom I knew really well. He was a professional kickboxer, really good on the local circuit. Had actually also won, I think, the Golden Gloves at some point. And he was working with an amateur, and it was really pretty to watch. It's very hard to control the action in these things, and I always admired the ability to do so. Just giving that amateur just enough pressure so that he felt the adrenaline come up, you know, and felt that tension and what it was like to be under pressure, but not so much that he wouldn't want to continue. And then something went terribly, terribly wrong. The amateur zigged when he should have zagged. And the pro threw a really slow telegraphic roundhouse kick to his head. And he blocked it, not with his hands, but with his head. And he crumpled to the mat. He wasn't out for very long. Loss of consciousness was maybe a split second, what we call a flash. And then he kind of shimmied his body back to the edge of the ring and kind of sat there against the ropes with a silly grin on his face and kind of a glazed look in his eyes. So I jump in the ring to see what's going on, check his neck to make sure there's nothing wrong there, and then start asking him some questions. Hey, do you know where you are? Yeah, I know where I am. I'm on a farm. Like, you're on a farm? Now, I know the ring ropes might have looked like a pen, but a little bit of a stretch. So I'm getting a little bit concerned, but everybody on the outside is cracking up. They're like, yeah, he's okay. He's just, you know, using his sense of humor to get beyond this, you know, making us all feel comfortable. I'm like, that wasn't my experience of this guy. I knew the amateur as well. And he was kind of one of these straight-laced guys. You know, he was an A to B to C, kind of an accountant kind of personality. And this was out of ordinary for him. So I continued questioning him. Can you tell me how old you are? So he tells me, yeah, I'm 12 years old. I go, let me get this straight. You're 12 years old and you're on a farm? And he says, yeah. I go, well, what's your wife's name? And he goes, are you kidding me? I just told you I'm 12. Why would I have a wife? So I do a physical exam on him and found some things that are disconcerting. So I sent him to the hospital just to be on the safe side for a CAT scan to make sure he didn't have a bleed in or around his head. Unfortunately, he was fine. He suffered a concussion and, you know, suffered some symptoms for a couple of days and then was fine. But, you know, I spoke to his wife while he was at the hospital because I wanted to clarify the information about, you know, the farm. And I asked him, did he grow up on a farm? His wife said, no, never actually grew up on a farm. In fact, he was a city guy. He'd never really left Queens in his entire life, but he always read about farms and always wanted to own a farm. I just wanted to emphasize, again, from these stories that the uniqueness of concussion, so it's unique to each individual. If you've been listening to the stories, Kirk Pellegrino presented with memory loss that to this day he still doesn't remember the fight that he was in. And the executive assistant to the actor presented with symptomatology that was much more extensive. So she had visual disturbances and difficulty focusing. She had difficulty with light sensitivity and headache and balance. And she felt like she was in a fog. She couldn't focus for quite some time. And the last person presented with memory, which you could argue was a false memory, because that person had never been on a farm and certainly wasn't 12 at the time of the injury, of the event. But the point is that doctors, will know how to treat you if you go to the appropriate centers and if you tell them what's concerning you. So I hope you enjoyed this story, and until next time, this is Dr. Sherry reminding you to live each day with passion, compassion, and introspection. See you next time. I'm going to go get my workout in.